This is going to be really laid back. This is going to be really interactive. How many people in the room have been through the 12-week online course we do? Wow. So probably a third to a half of you. Cool. And how many of you, this is the first time you've ever heard of me or been here and your boss just said hop on a plane and go somewhere? Cool. All right. Easy enough. Well, like I said, this is going to be really laid back. We'll start out by, I'll just give you a brief overview of what we're going to do, and then we're going to get into it. We're going to move pretty quick. It's going to be really, really interactive. If you've been through my online stuff, it's probably 80-20 me doing the talking, everyone listening, and 20% interaction. What I want this to be is just to kind of reverse that, right? Hit some of the content and then just drill it. I've been through a lot of sales trainings and things like that in my lifetime, and when I sit through them, I'm sitting there thinking, this makes a lot of sense. I get it, I'm going to use this. And then when it's time, and I'm on the spot, I don't know what to say, I don't know what to do, right? So that's why I want to use this time kind of as a boot camp, if you will, where we practice, we drill, and we get home, some of this stuff is just second nature to you. How's that sound? All right, good. Jim Zaspel.
Let's go, man.
All right, always making an entrance. Love it. All right, let's see if we can get my clicker to work. Might take a second, but I'll break down what we're going to do. So I have some questions for you, first of all. We've got a lot of content, and in front of you, you guys have a workbook. We can do this one of two ways. We can either go through all the content first, and then at the end of the last half, the last quarter of the second day, we can fill out this playbook. Or we can fill out the playbook while we go through all the content. So what the playbook is this. The playbook is your personal guide. So we're going to do all the acquisitions type of content, right? How to buy houses at deep discounts. What the playbook is it's going to take what you learn and put it into your market, your words. Basically, it's going to be your guide. You'll be able to flip through and go, when this situation hits, when A happens, I say B. Right? It's going to be just personalized for you, your business, your market, all that. So as we go through a piece of content, there's going to be a corresponding piece in the playbook where we go, all right, what are you going to say? What do you run into? How are you going to word this? What are your options? Does that all make sense? Yeah. So do you guys want to fill out the playbook as we go through the content, or do you want to wait until the end after you've soaked everything in, and then we go through it together and we knock it out?
Personally, I'd say the end.
I would personally recommend the end because a lot of the stuff we go through is going to build off of each other. So you might fill out one thing in the playbook today, but then your mind might be a little changed tomorrow after you pick something else up. So I'd recommend the end, but some people like to do, I've done a different way, so I wanted to get your feedback on it. Are we all good with the end?
Yeah.
All right. So you can flip through it as you go through it. You'll start to recognize a lot of the stuff we go through. We'll have some of the same questions on the screen, and about the last 2 hours or so of this tomorrow, we'll go through the playbook and everyone will fill theirs out. All right, I'm clicking. Sounds good. So the agenda, here's what we're going through. Basically, it's like our 12-week REI Sales Academy, but we're going to blow through the content super quick and spend most of our time just answering questions, doing role plays. If you guys have prospects you need to call, stuff like that, we'll freaking call them, right? Well, if you need to do that, we'll get on stage, I'll pick up my phone, we'll mic it up, and we'll call people, and we'll talk to prospects, right? It'll be really laid back. So start thinking, if you have people you need to call or deals that have stalled out and you don't know what to do with them, we'll do it here, right? So, the real deal, it'll be, we might fall on our faces, but that's part of the learning process, right? I think when it comes to learning anything and doing anything, the biggest thing that gets in our way is being afraid to fall on our face, so we just don't do it at all. So if I need to show you and I'll make some mistakes, then we'll do that while we're here. So start making a mental checklist. If you've got prospects that you just can't close down or that you can't get a hold of, start making a list, and we'll see if we can set aside some time to actually kind of mic up and go through some calls. So we're going to go through decision making, setting up a sales call, building rapport and trust, some body language stuff, creating urgency to take action, overcoming all that stuff that kills deals for us, closing, follow-up, putting it all together, and we'll do the workbook afterwards. I had 2 guest speakers scheduled. Darren Collins called me last night. His mother is ill and in the hospital and can't make it, but what we've agreed to do is after this, Darren Collins and I are going to do something online, and we'll do it live, and we'll also record it where we talk through using the sales process over the phone. We'll also do a bunch of phone type of stuff in here too. Shaheen, he's not here yet. Harry sold me my last vehicle. 24 years old, from India. He's a go-getter. And he was the finance guy at the Toyota dealership here in town. And I bought my last vehicle maybe 6 months ago, right? And we're doing the paperwork, and I'm asking about him, and he's telling me about his family, and he's asking what I do for a living. And I mentioned real estate, and his ears perked up. And we started talking. And over the next couple of months, we kind of texted back and forth every now and then. He was traveling the world to visit family members and things like that. And he said, how do I get into this business? So I ended up hiring him. Harry, I personally trained. He's buying, I think, I talked to him last week. I think he's doing about, by himself, buying 14 houses a month, right? Not too shabby on your own. In St. Louis, just a few hours from here. So he picked up the training in 24 hours and basically said, this is the exact opposite of everything Toyota and Infiniti or Nissan and everywhere I've ever been. It's the exact opposite I've been taught, but I hear you know what you're doing, so I'm going to follow it. And he is a beast. Like I said, 14 houses a month, out of the car industry. And we're in Missouri, right? If you guys haven't noticed, we are in the middle of the country. We're in the center of the Bible Belt. Missouri is they call it the Ozarks. It's very rural. It's a little bit, it's not as progressive as maybe the East Coast or the West Coast, right? And to give you an example, my last name is Martinez, and I moved here in the 6th grade. And when I went to my grade school, you know how you fill out that checkbox of what ethnicity you are? Well, my grade school, it was like 99% white and 1% other, and I was the other guy. Right, so it's just very, I guess white, right? So when you hire an Indian guy with a very thick accent, a lot of people said that's never going to fly here in Missouri, right? Like nothing wrong with it, but people just they're stuck in their ways, and it's just he's going to run into some challenges that maybe some others wouldn't, right? It's just life. It's the way it is. The guy's killing it. So we're going to have him talk about his experience this last 6 months, what he's seen and how he's been able to kind of change his whole selling model from car sales into buying houses and buying a lot of houses. He's really good at what he does, okay? So he's going to talk today or tomorrow as well. I might be manually pushing this. We'll see. So any questions so far? Come on, guys, liven up. Commuting. Yeah. We actually bought him a little condo in St. Louis, and he stays there most of the time. So there's going to be lots of interaction and participation starting now. Okay? We're going to do a lot of learning, or a lot of doing instead of just listening, because that's how we learn. Those who've been through my course, those who raised their hand when I asked you a little earlier, who's been through it, you're going to have the opportunity to help me teach, because we all want to step our game. My goal is that everyone's game is elevated a little bit by the end of tomorrow when we get out of here, right? If you've been through the course already, the best way you learn, the fastest way you learn is to teach others. So I'm going to pull you up and you're going to help me teach the group, because that's how you're going to take your game to the next level. Does that make sense? I mean, you guys up for that? Oh, yeah. I don't mean to put you on the spot, but I mean to put you on the spot. It's going to be a little bit uncomfortable. But hey, I'm a little bit uncomfortable. I'll tell you about who I am in just a second when we do introductions. But this isn't my comfort zone, I'll tell you that right now. So I'll also ask you guys to get out of yours. Here's what we'll do. Quick lesson. We'll do some exercises, very interactive, and then we'll fill out the playbook at the end. It's super simple. Now let's get into introductions, okay? So I'm a corporate trainer by trade. I've built, managed, recruited all kinds of sales teams, all kinds of industries. Starting out, it was insurance, moved into IT, manufacturing, that type of stuff. So what I would do is either work for a company and build a sales team and train them to sell whatever widget we were selling. or I'd be kind of a hired gun to help recruit and train salespeople for all kinds of companies really across the country. So I've worked with some pretty big names, Cricket and AT&T, some pretty big manufacturers. The biggest deal I've ever had a hand in was a $250 million deal out of a town about 15 minutes east of here called Stratford. Small manufacturing company, $10 million a year company. We did a deal with Google for some underground stuff for $250 million bucks. Believe it or not, there's a lot of commerce that happens here in Springfield. Johnny Morris lives here, the owner of Bass Pro. You guys see Bass Pro on your way in? You guys familiar with Bass Pro? Yeah. Talk about a salesman. So he started in a liquor store here years ago selling worms. And he built his worm business into a multi-billion-dollar outdoor empire. O'Reilly's is based out of here in Springfield. You guys familiar with O'Reilly's Auto Parts? Yeah. O'Reilly's family lived here, built it from the ground up, one store at a time. I think they've got 4 or 5, 10,000 stores across the country now. A lot of salespeople in this area. So I got into sales when I was young, and it was basically door-to-door sales, insurance, 100% commission. I got hired by a company. My job was to drive to businesses, ask the business owner if they'd like to switch their health insurance to whatever I had. And it was tough, right? And I was bad at it, but I had no choice. My first daughter was on the way. I had to make some money. Before that, I had worked for $8 an hour at a catering company. The only sales I knew was basically delivering food for salespeople. I worked a lot for pharmaceutical reps who'd order food. I'd push food into a doctor's office. When the doctors came to snatch a bagel or something, that pharmaceutical rep would try to sell them some drugs, right? That's what I knew of sales. I knew these people were sharply dressed. They got free cars. They were usually ex-athletes and stuff. They were pretty impressive. So that's what got in my mind, let's try the sales thing out. So I traveled about 5 states, door to door, slept in my car some nights, selling, just hustling, like 12, 16 hours a day on the phone or in appointments or driving to the next business. And from there, my hustle was rewarded and I was offered a chance to open up my own insurance agency in St. Louis. I did. I was the number one, the first employee, the only employee. I was the manager, right? And I started it. And my first job was to recruit, so I started to try to recruit people to sell for me. And it was tough because you couldn't just go out there and find people. I couldn't sell. I just worked my butt off, right? That's all I did. And I couldn't recruit people and say, just go work 16 hours a day, spend weeks away from your family and sell. They didn't want to do it for some reason. So, yeah. So I had to figure out how the heck am I going to, number one, recruit people, because that's a sale in itself. Come work for me for all commission. And it's a really tough industry. And then I have to teach those people I just sold into the business how to do the same to others. And I didn't know how to do it. So my story kind of started with this guy named Al Paone. He was a recruiter for the insurance company I was hired for. And he was also a recruiter for the Colorado Bulldogs. He got a lot of players on the team. And he was the first guy who said, John, there's a step-by-step process to this stuff, to selling. And recruiting and talking to people. And what I thought he did was just magic. And he came to St. Louis out of Des Moines, and he spent about a week with me, and he taught me the basics of sales, about having a process. And from there, I grew my agency over the next year to 50 agents. We did about $250,000 a week in what's called annualized premium, basically money we collected from new insurance policies, and it blew up. And that was my intro into sales and sales process, and that was about 20 years ago. And since then, I became obsessed with that, right? Probably like a lot of you guys, right? You're always reading books, articles, studies, listening to whatever sales gurus are out there, just sinking your teeth into it. That's what I did for the last 2 decades. So I've been through every sales training there is multiple times. I've read most every book, and I even got, pretty weird with it and got into stuff like neuroscience and how, the mechanics of the brain and how that works, how the synapses fire, and you can kind of start to trace the decision process we all go through when we try to determine whether or not we want to take action on something. So that was my journey from where it all started to where I am now. Now, do a lot in real estate, as you see. Got a few businesses. I buy real estate too in Springfield, some in St. Louis as well. I'm pretty hands-off on that business. Pretty much put the pieces in place. Partnered with another company that takes care of the dispositions. I hired and trained the acquisitions guy. He does all the work. The dispositions handles the paperwork and the closing. So beyond real estate, I train real estate salespeople. I train in a few other industries as well. Some hands-on, me and the sales team, some online. Got a call center in the Philippines as well, where we do nothing but take calls and make calls for investors. So I'm really heavy into this industry, this world. From I've probably heard tens of thousands of phone calls. I've been on the ground buying houses here locally. I also fly throughout the country for about a week at a time with some of the companies I work with, and I hit the streets with the acquisitions guys, and we go buy houses together. So everything I talk about today and tomorrow, it's not stuff that it's like I think this is going to work. It's stuff that I've been in homes doing. We've recorded those sales calls of us buying houses at deep discounts from East Coast, Pennsylvania, West Coast, Southern California, South Florida, and Texas. Haven't been too far north, so if anyone's in Chicago or that area and needs me to come up there, I will. Anyone from Chicago? Nice. Is Saul? Yeah, it's me. All right, good to meet you. So that's me. So guys, shout out, where are you guys all from? So we got Saul from Chicago. I know we got some guys from Miami. Phoenix? Dallas? Vegas, all right. Pennsylvania, Memphis, all over the country, right? None of those are competitive markets, though. It's a cakewalk. Why are you here? No, those are probably like every one of those markets are some of the most competitive markets in the country, which makes sense why you're here. But just shout out at me. Or actually, we got a mic in the back. Let's go around the room. Not everyone, but just raise your hand if you've got something to share. What I want to do is just kind of do some introductions and hear exactly what you want to get out of this. So over the next 2 days, I make sure 100% I cover it. So if there's specific issues you have, problems you're having, results you're not seeing, kind of introduce yourself. Tell me what you're looking for, because I want to make sure we get it out of this. Does that make sense? So we'll start with Jim right there.
My name is Jim Zaspel from Philadelphia. We buy and sell. We'll do about 65, maybe 70 fix and flips this year, about 25, 35 wholesale deals. And so we do a lot of deals. Anyway, I recently fired my only acquisitionist, off-market acquisitionist, and kind of left us in a lurch. So we've got a few people we're pre-screening, several people we're pre-screening. I'm going to whittle it down to 3. And so what I'm looking to get out of the event this week is to really just get some concrete strategies that I'm a decent salesperson, but that I can go back and train whatever 2 or 3 acquisitions I wind up keeping. That's what I want.
Perfect. Steve, up here in the gray shirt.
Steve from Vancouver, Canada. Our market's Austin, Texas, so we do that virtually. We've set up a team on the ground, have 2 acquisitions people, and they just aren't converting. Okay. So just what you're talking about as far as when you set up your insurance company. I can do it. I'm closing deals over the phone, sight unseen. Have no problem with that. Could do better, of course, but when it comes to actually removing myself from the actual sales side of it, I'm having trouble doing that because my acquisitions guys just aren't closing the deals. So okay. I want some steps to take away with me, and I wish that they were here, but they couldn't be here. So
that's okay. Yeah. And obviously we're recording this, so we'll have a video available. But let's talk about that for a second. I see that. No, I see it all the time. What happens is, and I'm going to ask you in a second if this applies to you, so I know how many people in the room are like Steve. So what I see often is, you start a business, you go out there, you learn to buy houses. You don't really pay attention to what you're doing, but you're doing it, right? You don't even think about it, but you go, when I say this, it doesn't work. When I say this, it works. You start learning to read people and that sort of thing, and you get really good at buying houses. Then you hire an acquisition agent, and you ask them to do the same thing, and it's really hard to figure out, what am I doing that works, and how do I get this knowledge out of my head and put it into this acquisition agent? And what most business owners and investors tell me is, they're like, I just feel it. I just know what to do, right? And then when it comes to training their acquisitions people, they say, do this, but it doesn't rub off, and they just can't do it. Who's all in that situation in that room right here? So there's at least 4 or 5 of you, maybe 6. Okay, so what we're going to talk a lot about then, for sure, as we go through this, are those very delineated step-by-step actions to take, and why that's important. Because a lot of us know that we can sell, but we don't know why what we're doing works. We might say, Well, when they do this, I just tell them this. Well, what we're going to cover a lot of is why does this actually work? Because once you figure out what the underlying motivations are, why the different things that you do works, that makes it a lot easier to teach and to understand. And once you understand why what you do works, you turn it into a tool. And you can then use that tool all throughout the sales process in all kinds of different situations. So we'll go deep into why different tactics and stuff work. What we won't do in this training is just say this one thing. That doesn't work, right? There's gonna be no one-liners or anything like this. I'll give you examples of what to say, what I say, and what others say, but we're gonna concentrate on are the tools. Why does that work? Why do people react that way and that type of stuff? Anyone else have anything they wanna make sure they get out of this?
Darwin, everybody, nice to meet you. Say it again. Okay, Darwin. I live in Scottsdale. I actually work for this handsome gentleman in front of me. He just told me to get on a plane, and we got in pretty late last night. So, we've got a small shop in Scottsdale. I actually do a good bit of the training for our acquisitions guys.
Awesome.
So, I'm kind of what you just talked about, where I've worked for these guys. How long, Jared? 18 months, something like that. Yeah, a little under 2 years. So, they locked me in a closet with a telephone, told me I could come out when I made them some money. Managed to see the light of day after a little bit, and now we're in that situation where we have a couple of guys that we're trying to train. I'm trying to kind of quantify the knowledge that I don't know. It is. I'm also making the transition. I did mostly virtual deals for quite a while, and now I'm doing more of the on-the-ground stuff with the Phoenix team, and it's been interesting. These guys right here, also good dudes out of Phoenix. We compete with them a little bit, but it's a lot of fun. So yeah, that's kind of what I'm trying to take away from this, and I'm sure he is as well, is how we can kind of bring it in, because like you said, we have a couple guys who are good, right? Yeah. They can convert, and they are very different people who come from very, very different backgrounds. And trying to get a little bit more to expand the team and really kind of quantify that, because like you said, sure, I could talk somebody into signing something, no problem. They kind of can too, but as we put a system together, it's been an interesting journey.
Okay, a quick show of hands, who's doing this virtually? So wow, we've probably got 6 of the room doing everything virtually, just over the phone. Do you live in the markets that you buy in, or do you not? Yes. Mostly yes. I know Vancouver's no. Okay. Perfect. So I'm going to set some quick expectations here. Number one, let's respect each other. We're all salespeople. Most of us have those A personalities. I don't particularly. I'm more of an introvert by nature, but I know there's a lot of people in this room that have very strong opinions. Let's just make sure if we disagree with someone, we do it in a respectful manner. There's nothing wrong with disagreeing with anyone in this room. There's zero wrong with disagreeing with me. It's fine. We can challenge each other. We can challenge ourselves. You can challenge me on every single point. That's okay, as long as we do it in a respectful way. Let's listen. There are no power strips in here for a very specific reason, because I've been through, even masterminds where people are paying 25 or 30K, you give them a power strip, you get sucked into that email, right? Life takes over. So I see some of you have computers out. That's okay. They'll die by the end of the day. It will be cool. But we did that on purpose. So we did it, guys, you took some time out of your life to be here, and I'm very thankful for that. Springfield's not an easy place to get to. It's 2 flights minimum from anywhere in the country. So I want to make sure you guys get something out of this, right? On a little tiny plane. No big planes come here. No big planes. Yeah. Anyone come in on a prop plane? Flew out of here once on one of those little prop planes where you could see the pilot right in front of you. Okay. It's scary. All right. I want you guys to look inward too. Even if you're the business owner or you have salespeople, the way this training works is this. When we start going over a certain topic, why people do what they do, the only way you really learn is you go, do I do that? How do I feel in that situation? That's where you get the most traction. When we talk about how people make decisions to buy or sell a house in this case, we can't think of it as it's those people who aren't like me, right? These are prospects. These are sellers. They're alien to me. No, we all make decisions the same way. So the way we make this training really effective is as we go through each tool or tactic or technique, I'm going to ask a lot of questions, not what sellers do, but what do you do when you're in that situation with the salesperson? How do you feel if this happens to you? And when we're able to look inward and we start to identify exactly how we make decisions, exactly what type of stimulus leads to what type of thought pattern or what we do, we start to understand our prospects at a much deeper level. So I'm going to ask you guys not to think of sellers or prospects as these foreign people who are outside of my world. I want you to take your look inward and start thinking about how you make decisions. So that's where a lot of my questions are going to come from. Remove distractions, we've already talked about that, and experiment and get uncomfortable. So, growth is all about getting outside of your comfort zone and doing something a little different. If you're not doing anything different, you're getting zero out of this, okay? I know you guys probably come in here that are probably really, really good salespeople. Probably top of the, part of the top 1 or 2%. I get that. I know who I'm in front of, a lot of successful people. But in order to reach that next level, whether it's going to be buying one more house a year or one more house a month or a week or a day or whatever it is, it means you're going to have to do at least something a little bit different. Can we all agree on that? No matter how good you are. If you want a different result, it might be just slightly tweaking something you're already doing, but that means you're going to have to do something a little bit different. That means experimentation. That means it's always uncomfortable. It sucks. I can't think of a time in my life where I've made any significant growth or progress at all where it wasn't extremely uncomfortable, right? And you guys know that, right?